I said in my last video I was going to talk about, or at least touch upon, the subject of enlightenment. And I'd like to preface by saying there are two enlightenments. There is the enlightenment of this physical reality as being an illusion, and that's the Buddha that, that's the experience or the enlightenment that Buddha experienced initially in his life. That does not require a belief in God or anything of that nature to have that enlightenment. And then there's the other enlightenment, which is the enlightenment of God, which is the experience of God as being real and existential. Because right now, the concept of God or God is a belief, a faith, a hope, based upon hopes, based upon spiritual writings, based upon Bibles, based upon people's intelligence just coming to conclusion, well, who created this? It must have been a God. But all of that is devoid of the actual experience of God, which removes faith and replaces it with experiential knowledge. So the same thing is true on the other enlightenment, which is the experiential, which is kind of, not really a good, explanation, but it is a experience of this physical reality as being truly what it truly is, which is an illusion. And the physical body, the physical brain, everything involved with all of that is incapable of either one of these enlightenments. But the essence, which is the driving force behind the decisions that this physical body makes, that has the capability of enlightenment. That has the capability of experiencing God through the vehicle of what Jesus referred to the body as the temple. So I was going to talk about those two things, but it's necessary to cover another aspect, because I said before that these enlightenments are actually byproducts of something else. And anyone that seeks after enlightenment, either one, you can seek after God and you can seek after enlightenment. And neither one will ever produce the results of enlightenment, because you're seeking after the shadow, in essence. You're seeking after the shadow rather than the subject. And so you're never going to get it, because, as I said, enlightenment is a byproduct of something else. So the concept of the byproduct of something else is, there is I don't know if it's a philosophy or what exactly, but I remember it was taught to me a lot when I used to go to church years ago. And they said people that are experiencing depression, a lot of times, and quite possibly all the time, but I'm not sure if it's all the time, but quite possibly it is, that depression You can treat it with medicine, you can treat it with psychology, you can treat it with all sorts of things. But it may never go away. You may remain depressed throughout your life, and a lot of people take their lives because of terrible depression. But I remember years ago that in the church I was going to, they addressed that, and it was commonly understood that if you wanted to remove your depression, you had to eliminate the self in essence. And the only way to do that was to volunteer to help someone else. And if you involve your life in helping other people, over the course of time, and if you're doing it, you might initially start helping other people begrudgingly. And over time, that might change a little, and then it changes and changes. And eventually, it's like you're driven to help other people. But the byproduct of that is, since you're distracted from yourself by helping others, your depression goes away. That's a byproduct. So the initial thing that you're doing is helping others. You're distracting yourself from yourself by focusing on the problems of others and the needs of others. And by helping them, the byproduct is your depression goes away. And another byproduct is you're filled with love that maybe you did not have before. You have an appreciation for people, for everything around you, because your focus is upon helping other people. So again, that's a byproduct. So let's carry that to the nth degree. One of the issues with knowledge I talked about before is in this particular realm, or shall I say on this particular planet, in this realm, God is Satan, Lucifer. Even Jesus recognized that the God of this world is Satan. And so all the writings over time are always geared towards perverted and changed so that you're never going to get the pure understandings of the so-called original author or whoever it is they were writing about. And that's why Jesus mentioned things like, when I'm gone, I'm gone. And Buddha mentioned the same thing. When a living guru or a living prophet or whoever is dead and gone, what they spoke and taught, there's a derivative of it, there's a shadow of it, but the real essence of what they were teaching or trying to help is gone from the planet. And of course, you can access that through intuition, or you can access it through prayer and fasting and all that kind of stuff, but you're not going to access it through written books and manuals and other people that teach about it. That's just not going to happen. So I talked about how power is a byproduct of knowledge. And without knowledge, you have no power. If you have power without knowledge, your power will dissipate eventually. So when a person seeks after knowledge, which is the emphasis in this life, that's why people seek after PhDs in spiritual understanding. That's why they read and read and read and read. The byproduct of that is if they gain more, then they have power. They have power because they have letters after their name. They have power because they write books and they have a following, etc., etc., etc. But they wouldn't have that without the knowledge. So they seek after knowledge. Combine that knowledge with humility, which is damn near opposite of what you would think knowledge knowledge is. But if you combine that with humility, and you are using your knowledge combined with humility and love to seek after an understanding of what enlightenment is, and you're more focused upon the reality. If you're more focused on, I'm going to get off the track because I want to get back to the aspect of knowledge. So I'm sorry I did that, but I need to get back to this. So the epitome of knowledge is God, the Creator, the supreme knower of all things. And so he would, or she, or it would necessarily have all power. And so what does this God do with all this power? Who benefits? Well, God can't benefit, because if God benefits from the power of God, then God is incomplete. Therefore, who benefits from the knowledge and power of God? Well, obviously we do, because we're lacking. So, getting back to how do you become enlightened and everything, it's a byproduct. So, when you seek after enlightenment because you are enthralled with it, you think that it might bring you closer to the creator of this reality because there's an interior love within you that seeks to understand, because if you did understand, you would somehow be able to help others understand, and your motives are altruistic in nature, and you just are driven and driven and driven and driven. And then because of your drivenness, you seek after the knowledge. And the byproduct of that is enlightenment. But if you're seeking after enlightenment, you're never going to find it. But if you seek after the knowledge of enlightenment because you love the Creator, you love everything, and you're not seeking after the power to benefit yourself, then you can actually become enlightened. I've talked about enlightenment as being compared to a lemon. And there are dictionaries and encyclopedias and science papers on lemons. There's every picture under the sun of lemons, and they exist forever. But they're still just a shadow of actually eating the lemon. When you eat the lemon, it is now real. But if you eat the lemon without the knowledge of a lemon, you might spit it out and think, that was terrible or whatever, because you have zero knowledge associated with the lemon. But if you have the knowledge and then you experience the lemon, then you have balance and it makes sense. Enlightenment is the same way. It's a quantum leap from a picture of a lemon to actually eating it. It's a quantum leap from studying about enlightenment and actually experiencing enlightenment. It's a quantum leap. It's that big of a deal. So the other thing is the experience or the enlightenment of God. That's far more rare than the experience or the actualization of spiritual enlightenment. Why do I say it's a far more rare thing? Mainly because in most Eastern teachings of spirituality, the teaching of God it actually is more on the side of atheism, kind of, than it is toward the side of Christianity that has God on this side, where they worship this God as this almighty, all-loving, etc., etc., whereas on the Eastern philosophy teaching of Sanatana Dharma and all that kind of stuff, it leans more towards atheism and stuff, and or this God that is not passionate. They talk about karma comes back if you do bad things, and all of these things that get in the way of actual God. And so when you have a wrong thinking of what God is, you're never going to experience God. It has to be a correct thinking. For instance, if you study oranges and you study the orange from pictures and from all sorts of manuals and documents and everything, and then you actually have a lemon, well, they're not the same thing. And so you're not going to understand what a lemon is by studying an orange. Same way, you're not going to understand or be enlightened about God if you study this figment of God or what everyone else says God is. So God is the essence of love. There's no retaliation in love. The concept of karma is completely upside down. There's no need for retaliation or anything like that. When you understand the concept of karma, I personally think the word karma ought to be done away with because it's so perverted from what it really is. Because karma is not more, but actually a way of teaching the individual that that particular choice path is wrong and they should change it. And karma is always a result of you individually choosing in your former life to experience that in this life to help you get back on the track that you prefer to be on. Now, when I say back on the track where you prefer to be on, that gets down to the concept of the atonement of Jesus, which is essentially a spiritual eraser to erase your past and to move on. But I'm not going to go into that because that's an entirely different subject. So let me say one thing that is probably different than most people that teach, and that is we think we're here to learn how to become enlightened. We think we're here to, according to the Mormons, to become gods and to develop ourselves into becoming gods. And there's this sort of thought pattern of becoming better, greater, more understanding. Let me change it and let me post this scenario. I think that we are already past the lawyer's bar. You pass the bar and then you're a lawyer. I think we've already passed the bar of being qualified as a god in regards to our knowledge and wisdom and understanding. Just because some people are born with the brains that are screwed up some way and they have issues with learning or this or that or whatever, doesn't mean that their self, their spiritual self, their essence is defective, but that they are in fact so intelligent that they are as intelligent or intelligent enough to qualify as a god. So what are we doing here? Well, we're being put to the test. What are we going to do with that knowledge? Think about it. What do you learn from the day you're born to the day you die, assuming you make it to 100 years old, assuming you have all the time in that 100 years to express yourself to what you really are? What in heck are you learning to become more like God? You're not learning anything. What you're doing is experiencing this reality as a avenue for which to test what you've already learned. What are you going to do with that? Well, some people become greedy bastards that run corporations and oppress the people. Some people do the opposite of that, and the byproduct of their abilities to be a CEO benefits everyone, although that's extremely rare. So some people devote their time to helping others. Some people use it to become parents and to raise their children. And some people, whatever the case may be, we are in a testing ground, and we're going to go through this testing ground so many times, reborn, 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 to explicitly define what we are going to be if we are allowed to be one with God, which is essentially being God or one with God. Well, if you're not the epitome of God, if in the end you choose hatred instead of love, well, then you're not one with God. And nobody's going to be born and live through this physical mortal life waltzing along like it's wonderful and not be tested. No, if your test is to become like God or to become like the devil, you've got a lot of decisions to make along this path of multiple lifetimes to prove what you are. And so that's the purpose of this particular life. So, are you trying to become enlightened because you want to help others? Or are you trying to become enlightened because that's something that you selfishly want for yourself? Well, that'll prove what you are and who you are. Now, it would be foolish to say that Satan is not enlightened. Of course he is. He understands everything. But he chooses a path that is different than the Creator God. And in Hinduism, Shiva, for instance, I've talked about that before. Shiva chooses a path that is different from Brahman. And that's not to say that Shiva doesn't have all the knowledge and all the wherewithal and all these sorts of things. You could worship that if you choose. But you're worshiping a powerful being rather than the Creator that is the epitome of love. And so that's the point and purpose of this life. So how do you become enlightened? Well, as I said, on the physical realm, how do you experience that enlightenment? It is almost always, if not always, a byproduct of searching for the understanding of reality. I've heard crazy stories, but I know they're true because I know how this works, that a monk or someone was having water drip into his bathtub and the drops were going kaplunk, 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 and instantly he became enlightened. That's an example of what it's like for someone to extricate themselves from this reality and realize what it is. I'll go into more detail on another video, but the same thing holds true with the enlightenment of God. It's as bizarre as that. Meaning, because of the love of God in your heart and soul, you seek after understanding of what that God is. And as a result, you're seeking because there's something in you that loves God. Now, if there's nothing in you that loves God because you don't know about God, because you've spent your entire life being raised in the Eastern philosophy of the teachings of Dharma and stuff like that, and which is more geared towards knowledge than it is towards the love of God. If that's been your course in life, that's not a bad thing, because maybe you've got several more lifetimes to go before you experience God. You can't criticize a kid in the 10th grade for not having the knowledge of a professor at a university. I mean, we all recognize we're at different levels and everything. But when you recognize that and you have love for everyone, regardless of what level they're at, then you're approaching the concept of loving unconditionally of everyone, regardless of where they're at. And then maybe you're on your way to becoming enlightened about God. And if and when that occurs, then according to Buddha, maybe you're done with the wheel of samsara. I don't know. But if you're attempting to end the wheel of samsara, you're never going to experience that. That's just the way things work. So I hope my ramblings are not too rambling. It's difficult to carry on a conversation without another participant one-on-one, just talking into a camera. It's difficult for me at least. And I have zero notes. I just go off the top of my head. And maybe that's a bad thing. People say, well, you got to be professional. You got to have notes. Well, I'm not. I don't care. It's not that I don't care. It's just that it's just not the way I work. And I don't do this for money or anything else. I hope that someone watching sometime in their lifetime gets something out of it. And if they do, hunky-dory, I am elated that someone would get something positive from the videos that I make. I know from my own experience that it may sound negative, but most people in Sangha groups and stuff, if they're challenged, and gurus do not challenge their Sangha groups for the most part, and that's because they seek after money, they seek after power, they seek after sex, who knows what the hell they seek after, but they're not seeking after the benefit of the participants. And so they're never going to challenge the flock, if you will. But when they are challenged, then you get this negative, you get this competition, and you get this stress and everything. Well, when that happens, then a person can leave this physical realm or this whatever this is and start to experience the concept of enlightenment. And it's almost a catch-22. So if a guru really did stress his followers, he might have 1,000 followers and 998 of them are going to leave him, and 2 might remain because of the pure love in their heart, and they might become enlightened. But the guru doesn't want to lose his flock because he enjoys the power associated with people worshiping him via, or maybe they're worshiping God via the guru. But either way, the guru becomes addicted to that and so refuses the challenge. I don't. I challenge everyone. You don't see it through the video, but if you knew me in person, I challenge everyone. There's no one that has ever not been challenged when in close association with me, which is exactly why I don't have that many friends in this particular world. So I'll do my best to offer it up, but as I was getting out initially saying, it has been my experience that most people that attend sanghas and sort of things like that, most people that when challenged, they will retaliate. They may act like, oh, I love my guru, I worship at his feet, and I praise you, dear Guru, and women are infatuated with him if he's a man, and this and that and everything else. And it's like wow, the dedication of these devotees. It's just amazing. And then the Guru challenges them and says, well, you're doing something wrong, and your quest is self-centered, and you are selfish in your nature and everything. Well, 99% of them, after they hear this several times, because they really are, by the way, when they hear this time after time, they retaliate. They come out against the Guru. They'll tell their friends, oh, that guy's an asshole. I don't want to listen to him. He's horrible. He's just I'm going to find someone else. Well, of course you're going to find someone else. That's why you're never going to become enlightened, because you're always going to seek something that's comfortable to you. And comfortable, are you kidding? Think about Jesus. They hung him on a damn cross and killed him because his message was so horrible to the people in power. The people that followed him, I mean, you read that. If you read seriously, if you read into it, if he did not walk on water, so to say, and produce wine from water and all these sorts of, nobody would have followed him for his message. Nobody would have followed him. He'd have just been another crackpot, and people would listen. And then as soon as he challenged them, boom, they would attack him. That's been my experience in life. Regardless of where I go, or what I teach or whatever, when you get to know the people one-on-one, they attack you. Very few have not. And those few that have not have gained immensely spiritually understandings and stuff. So I can teach you over the video, but it's not one-on-one. So anyways, I do my best. I hope you have a good day. Bye.